Hey guys, this week we're going to be covering an American hero, Harriet Tubman, for Black History Month. We're going to celebrate her the only way we know how. Guns.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Black and Blurred.
Hi.
That's Darren. I'm Brandon. Here we are.
We're here.
It's Black History Month.
Yep. As promised, we're going to talk about some black people.
And we're celebrating with some guns.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm. In case you didn't know this, our episodes are also, as best we can, uploaded on YouTube. So if you're listening to this and like, whoa, man, I'd like to see what they have, go to YouTube. We also will share with you, or our patrons, those who support us on Patreon, some trips to the gun range.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Some competition.
Yeah, that I win.
That's insane that's the way you remember that.
I just recalled it. I am remembering correctly.
That's crazy to me, but I love it. I mean, that's fine because it's video. So maybe that's what it is. So, I see. Because you were just unloading the GoPro, and you probably saw that one time when that happened. Okay, all right. Well, let's move on. Go to www.patreon.com/blackandblurred and become a patron. Support us. We're trying to expand this. I'm also trying to help my wife not have to work anymore. To be honest with you. So yeah, there's that. I want to do a couple shout outs too.
Yeah.
Because we've been getting some support from people. And you know, people may underestimate the support that they share. They may underestimate what it means to us when we get an email saying, hey, I just listened to this episode and here are my thoughts, or have some questions, or here's my pushback. Even that, the fact that people are engaging is encouraging to us. Let me see if I can. I recently got an email from a good friend of mine. It's like a little brother. I used to pastor him at a church in Silver Spring, and he's been checking in on the episodes. We've been going back and forth on a couple of thoughts, but my boy Leon just sent us an email. Said, "Oh man, I can't get enough of your podcast. I listened to the episode about CRT and regressive Christianity, and I really like both. I catch myself almost talking out loud and joining the convo. That's how much I like the episodes. Also, y'all are too funny. Those opening lines about keeping it lightweight had me cracking up." And so he goes on, but what he addresses in this email is that he's saying it was very interesting to get the perspective of a Black American on critical race theory.
Yeah.
Because even I think I
already hate it.
Darren's currently mercy smoking a cigar, and a mercy smoke is essentially someone gave you a gift. They gifted you a cigar, and they don't really know about cigars, maybe, and out of the kindness of your heart, you smoke it.
He was smoking this as he gave it.
That smells like chocolate cotton candy.
It tastes like a peppermint stick.
And so that's just a bad sign.
I'm putting this out.
For a cigar, it's a bad sign. But real quick, get back to Leon.
Yeah, Leon.
Yeah, he's just saying, you know, he's never heard that perspective. He's never heard it from the perspective of a Black person. And even to be fair, like our perspective isn't a unanimous perspective from Black America.
Right.
But it's still a perspective that you won't really hear much of. But
it's certainly not a favorable perspective.
Yeah. It's not a favorable perspective. But he sent that to us.
Thank you, Leon.
And we appreciate it, dude. He also said that he believed that I was the funniest. I can't find it in the email.
He didn't say that. I read the email. He didn't say that.
How did you read the email?
You sent it to me.
Oh, crap. He says, please tell Darren that I've been keeping score, and in my opinion, he's a little ahead of you in the jokes and comebacks department.
Straight like that, straight like that, straight like that.
Plus,
I disagree. We'll have to. Well, I don't know. I'll have to check that scoreboard. But Leon, you're appreciated. We appreciate your encouragement, dude. We appreciate you checking in on the episodes.
Thank you, sir.
And there's a couple others. Like I've been engaged by people on Instagram. There's a good friend of the podcast who's just been engaging with different things on Instagram. Her name is My Father's Table on Instagram. And she's just been very encouraging, listening to episodes, responding to them, sharing them. We appreciate that. Any others?
Shout out to our number one fans, our parents.
Yeah, our parents, definitely.
Who
are also patrons.
Yeah, they're patrons, and then gave us those
decanters. Yeah, those decanters are
with our cover art on them. Yeah,
are dope. Shout out to John, who was our first patron, number
John.
one.
Yeah, John.
Straight like that.
Straight like that. Don DeMarco.
But yes, we appreciate and love the support. If you're listening to this and you would like to support on Patreon, go do that. A very free way of supporting us is going on your podcast platform, and if they have a rating opportunity available, then go and give us a 5-star rating. Because no matter what the platform is, if ratings are available, it helps the podcast become visible. So please go give us a rating and leave a comment saying that I'm actually ahead in Darren in quips. It will help us out. Moving on. We are recording this on Monday the what? All days are smashed together for
Today
me.
is
This is post Super Bowl. That's
the 7th then, or it's 8th.
The 8th. Monday the 8th we're recording this on. You're listening to this on Wednesday the 10th.
Right.
But we're recording this one day after the Super Bowl. We want to do a quick recap.
Yeah.
Because, professional sports always breeds some incredible moments for us that we love to just talk about and share.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. What's the first thing that pops into your mind?
Tom Brady got 7 rings.
He's a GOAT. Look, I'm no longer harboring hate in my heart.
Yeah. I do not forgive him for all the cheating.
They cheated. They cheated a lot.
But
he's a GOAT. Look. I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done.
We ain't never had no problems beating him, but it's okay.
They never, marked up the Foxborough. Look, no. We're doing this. You did that.
Yeah,
You
but it's okay.
No, that's fine. He is
But
the
that's
GOAT.
part of the reason why I have no hate in my heart.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
You're my enemy.
Yeah, well, it wasn't my enemy. It's not my problem. And it's definitely not our problem anymore.
Nope.
He's the GOAT. And not only that, he's the greatest athlete of all time because he beat COVID.
Yeah, he did.
He ended COVID.
We
yesterday.
watched him in COVID.
Yeah, and COVID's over, guys. Did you not hear the news? Per the NFL, Tom Brady has defeated COVID, and that's why they had an entire stacked stadium.
Yeah.
For that game.
Yeah.
So when your kids aren't able to go to school and you're not able to, do the things you would like to do because of COVID, just remind them. Show them Tom Brady's 7 rings and be like, whoa. Tommy the GOAT has beaten COVID for us.
He defeated it.
That's pretty wild. The stadium was stacked.
Super Bowl packed.
Stacked. And it's almost as if the people who aren't billionaires all have to succumb to the rules of COVID protocol.
Right.
But $1 billion industries make so many exceptions.
Right. The conspiracy theorist in me would say they specifically planned for it to be in Florida because they know that Florida is loose with COVID. And so now it's their excuse to pack the stadium for Super Bowl.
You just made me choke. That's thinking ahead.
Yeah.
You just went over people's heads with that.
It's okay.
Because what's implied is that even Corona is planned.
Come on now. preach up.
But even if it's not, which let me be explicit, I don't actually believe that. I'm not convinced. I don't have hard evidence to say that this was made in a lab, but I'm willing to look at evidence. I'm willing to listen to people.
Yeah.
That's what our episodes were about. If somebody comes, which people have come forward, and they say, "Hey, look, there's some questions we should ask about this COVID thing." I'm gonna be like, "Okay, let me get my pen."
Where do I put a whole cigar? Just put it in here?
Yes.
Okay.
Commercials.
Oh, man.
Remember, that was a thing.
Yeah, I would say the only commercial that wasn't propaganda
State Farm
was a State Farm commercial with Drake and Paul Rudd.
It was pretty funny.
Everything else had some hidden propaganda.
Well, not all of it.
And they weren't funny.
Not all of them.
Some of them were just straight up
hedonistic.
Yeah.
There was the commercial, the Amazon commercial, where the wife in front of her husband was fantasizing. What's the word I'm looking
basically.
at? What's the word? What is the word?
Fantasizing?
Yeah, fantasizing. Good grief.
I'm smarter.
Was
Baltimore City.
fantasizing about having an affair with Michael B. Jordan via her Alexa.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah. But no, you're right. I mean, I know people are sick of the phrase virtue signaling, especially if you're on the side of rooting for virtue signaling. But it's really just, but let me finish that statement. It's really just, it seems disingenuous. That's why. It just doesn't seem like it's genuine. And as I was thinking that, there was something that came to mind. And I think this will be our last thing regarding the Super Bowl. You know what I started seeing the most?
Small businesses.
This entire campaign to support small businesses through COVID.
Yeah.
Now break down for the people why this would be such a sick thing that's happening right now.
Well, because all during COVID, during Donald Trump's last year as president, when he was asking to open small businesses, everyone was fighting against it. For example, I used to work at a small business in the Four Corners of Silver Spring. And almost every single customer would come in there like, oh man, COVID's so crazy. You just need to shut the country down. Everyone needs to get back together. I mean, we just need to fix it. Shut the country down. Shut the country down. Da, 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 Joe Biden. Da, da. And then our owner announced that because we were losing, they shut down schools. So mothers who worked at our job had to leave. They shut down daycares. So even mothers with younger children couldn't even, people were just afraid to leave the house in general.
Yeah.
So our business closed.
Yeah. Shut down.
Small business. And we realized as we were telling people, these very people that were for the shutdown are like, oh, what am I going to do?
Yeah. How my dog going to get groomed?
What am I going to do? And it's like, well, you wanted this.
Right.
Y'all don't realize how much these small businesses make communities work.
Yeah.
You don't recognize that little bakery across the street, the little mom and pop break bakery, makes the bread for the pub right behind us that you love so much.
Yeah.
So when they shut down, when you advocate for them shutting down, it hurts them. It hurts them and it hurts your community.
And this is what happens this is what we mean by politics. Obviously, there are very important issues that are within the realm of politics in the political discourse, right? And but politics is this: that when the president, whoever the president is, says something that's favorable for the country, since he's not on our team, we will go against it, even at the expense of American lives. Right. We'll go against it. And now that the president that's on our team is in office, we're going to go gung-ho about trying to support, or at least make it seem like we're supporting. Right. They even did a support small business concert after the Super Bowl. Yeah. All these celebrities, all these superstars. Yeah. Mum was the word. Yeah. An entire year.
Right.
People have suffered. Businesses have suffered. Livelihoods have suffered. And politics that so many citizens love to play along with too says that, hey, we're not actually for the benefit of others. We're for our agendas.
Right.
And people plaster these people's faces all over things. That's why you don't have heroes in politics, guys.
Right.
Even Trump supporters.
Yeah.
That's why you don't have heroes. Right. This is why you don't have heroes. The politics game is the game that gets citizens from hating each other. Meanwhile, the citizens come together in a united way to keep the politics at bay.
Right.
To make sure that they exist only for our benefit. That's why we go out and we vote and we say, you fill this office, you do this role.
Right.
But no, So now we're in a place where businesses have suffered.
Yeah.
They've been shut down. Now, there's still good news. Tom Brady beat COVID, so maybe he'll turn small business around as well.
That's right.
But and so now that's what we're going to see. Old man Joe is in office, and so now we're going to see all the different things that were addressed a year ago.
Yeah.
And that were called to be stupid or idiotic,
Evil, and racist, and
and you know what else we'll hear from regarding that side?
What's that?
Nothing.
Oh, yeah. No accountability.
We'll hear nothing.
Yeah.
We'll hear nothing.
Yeah, because Chris Cuomo didn't say it.
You know what? Based on the way this is going, we might not have one black person die this year.
No, we will. By guns.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. If it's not racism, it's going after guns. I forget about that. You're right. But we digress. Darren, you've got a hero to talk about.
Yeah. Speaking of freedom.
When a hero comes along with the strength to carry on, do you know the rest of the words?
Are you quoting a song?
Yeah, that's Mariah Carey. What's wrong with you? Read your person.
Sure. There once was a woman. Sorry. You know the little speaking voices you read?
No, thoughts for your thoughts. From on Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Welcome back to Thoughts for Your Thoughts.
But yeah, as some of you may have seen in our promo, the woman of this episode, of this week, the heroine, is Harriet Tubman, formerly known as I don't even know how to say it, Arminta Ross.
Yeah.
That's her maiden name.
That's definitely a South name.
Yeah, Army.
yeah. That's exactly.
Arminta Ross. Harriet Tubman, as we know her, was born in Dorchester County, Maryland, which is what we know today as Eastern Shore, Maryland, on a plantation. Her parents, I couldn't find her father's name, which makes sense because a lot of them were separated from their parents. They actually don't even have an official birth date for Harriet Tubman.
Yeah.
They just say that she was born. They just say that she was born between 1820 and 1821. Like, isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that's wild.
A whole year.
Oh, yeah. Somewhere in there you can.
Yeah. But she was born in, her mother's name was Harriet. She had 7 siblings. They were born together, but separated very, very quickly. By the time Harriet Tubman was 8 years old, her parents were gone. Her siblings were gone.
As opposed to being sold. I mean, as a result of being sold.
As a result of being sold to other slave owners. Right. I think she was there with one other sibling. And there's not a lot to say about it. I mean, basically what she was sold to do at 8 years old was to basically keep children quiet in the house. And if any children would cry, she would get whipped. It was her job to raise children at 8 years old and to keep them quiet. And if they cried, they made noise, and she got in trouble. Apparently, she wasn't good at that because they kicked her out the house and made her work outside in the fields, which apparently she was good at. And at 13, she was basically managing people on the fields. They gave her a leadership position as a slave, which is weird.
Yeah.
She was managing people, picking whatever whatever it is they were growing. One pivotal part of her life was she was 13 years old. She went to a market, and a slave was running away, and a slave, what do they call them? Slave catcher. That's what they call them. A slave catcher tried to throw
predecessor to police. Right.
A slave catcher tried to throw a 2-pound weight at the slave who was running away. A 2-pound weight at the dude who was running away. And Harriet Tubman stepped into the doorway and hit her in the head, cracked her skull. And she went into
on purpose.
On purpose, yeah. This is at 13 years old. And she fell into a coma. And because of that, she suffered from seizures for the rest of her life. something else about that incident. Oh yeah, she said that she started to have a lot of vivid dreams, which led her to Christ.
Say that again.
She began to have a lot of vivid dreams that led her to Christ.
Something you will not hear about Harriet Tubman in popularized history lessons is her faith. And explicit faith. You might hear that she was a woman of faith. She was a woman of God. She was a woman of God. But, you know, you don't hear about her faith.
Yeah.
Because that'll play a role in what she does later. Read. Read.
Harriet Tubman. It's like, no. But yeah, so she had dreams, and as she got older, she interpreted those dreams to mean that she had a bigger calling. It wasn't just to bring her to Christ, but a bigger calling to save people. In fact, people referred to her as the second Moses.
Yeah.
Which is kind
of blasphemous. Jesus is the second Moses.
Right.
But we get what they were saying.
Yeah.
You're like another Moses is what it is.
Right. Some people actually called her Lady Moses.
Oh, okay.
So that's better. But so in 1850, so she was born around 1820, between 1821. It wasn't until 1850 when she was able to escape Maryland. She escaped Maryland and went to...
Meaning she fled slavery.
She fled slavery.
Which was illegal.
Yeah, she was a fugitive.
She was a lawbreaker.
She was a lawbreaker.
She broke the law.
She broke it. She broke the law, which... How terrible, like... Yeah, okay.
I mean, think about how people demonize others for breaking the law in general.
Right.
Obviously, we're not talking about immorality.
Right. We're talking about unconstitutional law.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, but basically, one of the things that people heard her talk about, and here's another point before I go on about her walk with Christ. You know, this walk that she supposedly supposed to have gotten from the white man. People always heard Harriet praying for her slave master that he would be saved.
Wow.
People always heard her doing that at a young age when she was 15 years old. She used to be in the room praying for her slave master.
Let me reiterate this too. As we go through, go ahead.
She couldn't read or write, so she didn't read Ephesians.
Yeah, right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
That's just what she did.
Or Philippians. You talking about as far as praying? What are you talking about?
I'm just talking about obeying your slave masters.
Oh, I see. Got you. Oh yeah, I got you. When we go through these, our desire is to go through these individuals in a verifiable, a falsifiable, meaning that you can check in on this and see if it's false, but also in a undoctored and unapologetic way. Because there are heroes of this country. There are heroes of the faith that are censored for political propagandizing. And
you ever learn any of this stuff about her in school?
No, not in school. We had to learn it on our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We never learned about Harriet Tubman, and all we knew was that she helped free slaves.
Yeah, right. Underground Railroad.
You know what I mean? We never talked about
Oh my Lord,
what motivated her to.
Lord,
because
Lord.
what else would possess someone to have that kind of courage?
To risk their lives for the benefit of others.
Speaking of risking her life, after she escaped, now she's a free woman because she escaped to, I think at the time it was New York, which wasn't, that did not have strict slave laws. They eventually did adopt them, which is a little backwards. They eventually adopted some laws, but she escaped to New York, got a job, worked for a little while, where she met her husband and changed her last name to Tubman. John Tubman was his name. And she decided to go back to Maryland to free more slaves. She took about 19 different trips back and forth from Maryland to New York to save about 70 slaves from that plantation.
What she was doing is going against the grain of society.
Now, even here, right? Now, the Underground Railroad, in order for it to work, it couldn't be run by a bunch of black people. literally Harriet Tubman's closest allies were white.
Yeah.
They also, even more dangerous, were going against the grain.
Yeah.
Going against society. A bunch of people living near slave plantations that are organizing slaves to be freed.
Right.
You know, the evil white man that shoved that Christianity down their throat.
Yeah,
confuse the black man.
Right. To keep us further divided.
Yeah.
And faithless,
Yeah.
godless, in a place where we are now, where in Black History Month we can wait for the big billionaire companies to have some commercial about Black History Month,
Right.
and I guarantee you they support black babies being murdered, all types of babies being murdered, and people think that that's just relegated to a political discussion.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, you're talking about a person who dwelt in the midst of a very prominent political discussion, slavery. It's a way of life.
Yeah. It was how they earned money.
Have mercy.
So what she's doing is stealing their money, their property.
Yeah. She's stealing property.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that majority of what they called it the Underground Railroad. I hope some of you know that it's not an actual railroad. There were no trains. But because they code named it that.
I once thought that when I was
That's crazy.
when I was a boy. I once thought it.
Yeah, so in order to keep the name a secret, you know, to keep it, they nicknamed people railroad names. So they called Harriet Tubman a conductor. And then they called some people railroad organizers. So conductors basically would help to move people from state to state. These organizers would house them, and these were the white people. Basically, there were white people. They're the only ones that had homes, and so they would house slaves 20 or 30 at a time in their attics or in their basements. And many times, the slave catchers would come to their homes looking for them to be allies, saying, "Hey, did you see any slaves come through here?" And they would say, no, I didn't see anything. I'll be on the lookout for you," kind of thing. And then when the nightfall came, they would let them go. And this is the South. We're talking about Maryland. That was considered the South back then. I mean, she led 70 people, and not one person died. Not one person went back. And the reason we have these guns here is not just because of freedom.
There's a reason a person didn't go back.
Yeah. So Harriet Tubman, the first courageous act she did was steal her slave master's gun. A lot of people see pictures of Harriet Tubman with this shotgun or this old rifle. That's not what she had. She had a 6-shooter, like a little revolver that she would keep on her. And anybody who tried to turn back because of fear, she said, "Okay, you can go back, but you won't go back alive."
Right.
She would let them know, like, "Hey, if you go back, you could be killing all of us.
Every single one of us.
So you can't go back." And so they ain't go back. They went with Hillary. I mean,
Hillary.
Oh my goodness.
Where did
Satan.
you at?
They went with Harriet.
Oh my goodness.
They went with Harriet.
Goodness. I'm with her.
Yeah. They went with Harriet Tubman. And so later on in her life, after she was free, because eventually New York adopted some of those same laws, and they had to leave New York. And so and
those laws being that if you ran away from your slave master and you were found, then you have to be returned.
You have to be returned because you were their property, and anyone who helped you leave would be hanged. And so a lot of times they would torture slaves to get answers. You know, they'd interrogate them and try to get them to give over their masters and things like that. New York adopted some of those laws to get them to go back to slavery. So they all escaped to Canada. She joined the Union Army as a nurse and also as a spy. She would go. I read this article saying that she would hide. I don't really know how, but she was 5 foot tall. She was a small person. She would hide and pretend like she's reading the newspaper. Like she can't read. She would just hold the newspaper up and act like she's reading it and listening on soldiers. to hear plans and then go back and tell.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of courage. And actually, one of the biggest things she did that we don't talk about, there was a colonel, James Montgomery, and this was in. I'll write that down. Oh yeah. It's called Combahee Ferry, South Carolina, which just sounds southern and slavish.
Boy, I'd take you to Combahee.
Yeah.
It does.
Actually sounds Native American.
Yeah, probably.
But yeah, so she linked up with this guy, and they helped free 700 slaves at one time. He had a fleet of boats, and they just loaded up 700 slaves on a boat and went to Canada. I mean, she was literally like, imagine, these slave masters didn't have, 1,000 slaves at a time. They didn't know they were disappearing.
Right.
You know what I mean? They would wake up one day and go, "Where are all my people?"
Yeah, right.
Like she took all of them. And so she was making a big fuss. And one of the things they don't really talk about, obviously, she wasn't the only person, and one of my issues with Black History Month is just that it's nice to highlight Harriet Tubman, but there were white people doing this as well.
Yeah.
Outside of Black people. They were doing it just because they saw that it was right.
It was, yeah.
And Kansas was one of those battleground states where they were fighting for or against slavery. So this state is one of the states that hadn't decided whether or not slavery was legal or illegal.
That's right.
And Kansas in 1861 basically kicked off the Civil War. It was that state where people were like, you go to Missouri or be a slave, or you go to, I don't know, Pennsylvania, be free. You know what I mean? Whatever's close to Kansas. But yeah, so there was literally fights in Kansas. And it's because
it was little civil wars too.
Yeah, right.
Real quick, because what was important, and this was the dilemma that came up, is this protection of property. And we're hoping down the line we can do an in-depth history of the Democratic and Republican Party. And bring a historian on for you all. But a very oversimplified version of that history is that a value in the country was protection of property, a protection of property. And so when you had these states that were territory that hadn't been, there was no governance yet. There was no governance, but people were still moving. They were trying to move, and people were trying to create opportunity, opportunity creation. And people were they were behind the eight ball, the citizens, because you had the slave masters that were expanding their territory, and they would just launch into a territory and then take over it, and then take over all the opportunity in that territory as well, all the different work. And so you had, I forget the exact rule, but and what it was called, but you had a scenario where there was no actual law regarding slavery there. However, if there were a certain amount of people there in this territory, then the moment a slave owner decides to live in this territory, then they would have protection of property. Yeah. And what's property? Right. People. People were their property back then. And so people were trying to fight to maintain, I guess, dominance in that territory if they were anti-slavery, which was Republican, or if they were for slavery, which was Democratic. Yeah. So, yeah, go ahead.
And it was those little battles in Kansas that kind of started Black people, because that's what it was. It was Virginia or Missouri. Because at the time, Virginia was safer than Missouri, which is hard. Yeah. But over time, it got worse. It was just bad. But and it's basically just people migrating from those states that did away with slavery. They migrate to other states. States that were once not terrible became terrible, just like we see now. Right. People moving their ideas to other states.
Right. California to Texas.
Voting in people with the things that they like. Yeah. So basically, if you would go back then to the 1860s and ask somebody where they were from, they would say, "Oh, I'm a Virginian." But it was these battles that made people say, "Oh, I'm an American," because this is as the colonies were breaking apart and the states started to become united, And so the states started to have a united front against slavery. Some were having a united front for slavery.
Right.
And either side would say, oh, I'm an American.
Right.
Even blacks. And none of them said, no, I'm from Africa.
Right.
My heritage is this.
Yeah.
No. They knew America.
And it wasn't considered, one, it wasn't considered evil. And two, it wasn't considered an affront to your long lineage.
Right.
But meanwhile, today, this, I don't know, it seems like this caricaturized nationalism.
Yeah.
And people assuming that there's a threat to nationalism in this country. Meanwhile, if there is a threat to nationalism, I promise you, it's only rich people who can pose that threat. And if they're rich people, that nationalism doesn't belong. It's not an American nationalism. I tell you that.
It's not.
And I tell you, it is not partisan.
No.
It's certainly bipartisan.
Yeah.
That threat.
Yeah.
But follow the rules, Darren. Don't be a lawbreaker.
I won't. But yeah, I mean, it's really the background. Oh, one of the other main things that Harriet Tubman was involved in was, which I think would be relevant today, is women's suffrage. So she grew up around women being treated like cattle. You want to talk about what's the show? Handmaid's Tale.
Handmaid's Tale. Yeah.
Women were being treated like cattle, and it wasn't in the name of Jesus. It was in the name of property.
Right.
It was, this is my property. You will have children, and then take care of mine.
Yeah. Right.
The thing is, what's weird is they allowed them to get married and have children because
they wanted
when
more
they
property.
had children, they would have more property.
Yeah.
So she was actually for women's rights, and back then it meant women didn't have rights. They weren't allowed to vote. In fact, a lot of them weren't even allowed to speak in public.
Yeah.
Especially in the presence of men. But Harriet Tubman was obviously against that because she was for the freedom of all people. It didn't matter what you looked like because she didn't have this hatred in her heart for all white people. Because a lot of her help was from white people.
You know what's an interesting hypothetical dynamic?
What's that?
If the love, or at worst the love, at best the ambiguity surrounding abortion, or quote unquote the right to choose, existed,
They call it women's rights.
during protection of property while people are property. And as we're watching these slave owners force their slave women to kill their children in the womb, would people call that evil today? And I imagine that someone trying to work around it would say, well, yeah, it's evil only because they didn't choose it.
They didn't choose it.
Man, debased mind.
Yeah.
Debased.
Yep.
Meanwhile, it's unanimous. Slavery is evil.
Right.
And if you go to the root cause of why slavery is evil, it goes right back to the sanctity of human life.
Right. Right.
It's just so, the thing I end up always getting very frustrated over, spending time with the Lord, repenting over, but then also lamenting over, is the fact that people romanticize stories like Harriet Tubman. They romanticize people in history.
I had to look through, the history, they got nice music in the background.
Yeah.
Harriet Tubman was born in Arminta Ross on a plantation in Maryland. She worked on a farm. No. Stop that.
Yeah, because what you don't realize is happening throughout the storytelling, and this is also with reading scripture as well. People read scripture, and you're not reading between the lines of what it's implying for a human to be doing this thing.
Right.
What's implied for Harriet Tubman to be doing what she's doing, for her allies to do what they're doing, is to stand firm against what is deemed socially acceptable at the risk of your own life.
Right.
And people aren't even honest about the fact that they're quiet today about a lot of things because they don't want people to dislike them.
Yeah.
And it's, I do empathize with them, but I'd be lying if I didn't say it makes me angry.
Yeah.
I'd be lying.
Yeah. You want to talk about unity? That's a beautiful picture of unity.
Beautiful.
Some people are saying, hey, we need help. And some people are saying, okay,
Yeah.
come stay in my house.
Come stay in my house.
I could die, but I'll leave you here.
Right. Right. But hey, I guess we're making progress because now if you slip up and you say something ignorant about someone's culture, then you could lose your livelihood. You could lose your job.
Yeah.
Just to further divide us. We don't understand each other. One. Right. There's lack of understanding in intercultural relationships. And there's also no freedom, no grace in the conversation. Because if you say the wrong thing, you're going to be deemed a racist.
Yep.
Only if you're non-black. And then now we get all of our information on how to love one another from these different books and these different articles. Not scripture.
Yeah.
Scripture is used as a proof text for the books and the articles.
Yeah.
But scripture is not sufficient today.
Right.
To learn how to grow in love, endurance, long-suffering, kindness, not holding on to what's wrong, not holding on to evils, not holding on to anger, dwelling on what's praiseworthy and morally excellent. These types of things, all found in this old dusty book given by this apparently insufficient deity that these black people and white people continue to worship only because the white people commanded them to. What a caricature of life we're living in right now.
And that's a weird assumption that white people were Christians. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that a strange assumption that all white slave owners were Christians?
Yeah.
People say that all the time.
Well, it's the same assumption of saying all Republicans are Christians.
Right. Yeah.
Now, in their defense, the culture there, the surface level evil culture.
Yeah. But what I'm talking about is, that the whole claim, usually from the atheist or the black Hebrew Israelite or the woke black people, who say that black people, you only Christians
because your
slave master was a Christian. What a weird assumption.
Right.
How could you possibly know that?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, how could you know that every black person's slave master, if they had one, if every black person's lineage
goes to a slave?
Yeah. Because there were a lot of freed black people.
Yeah.
In fact, the man that Harriet married was a free man.
Yeah. That's where you get in black American culture the last name Freeman.
Yeah. Right. Freeman or Freedman.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Give me two takeaways you had after this talk.
She died March 10th, 1913. Her tombstone said, "Here lies a faithful servant of God. Well done."
I watched the movie. You haven't seen
Harriet? No, I haven't seen it.
I disliked it, yeah. But I think that's my conclusive response, that I disliked it. But watching it, it was intriguing. But knowing what I know, I saw what Hollywood was doing.
Yeah.
Because
like
if you tell the truth about Harriet Tubman, then at least through the lens of that story, Jesus is king. If you tell the truth,
yeah,
and there's unity against evil,
right?
But yeah. Did you have any final thoughts about it in researching that, and or any thoughts you have about as you transfer all of that to today and where we are?
I guess as I was studying it, one main thought I had, which I kind of already shared, was that there were so many people involved. And I just wonder why, growing up in the inner city, when we're taught Black History Month, those people are left out.
Yeah.
Harriet Tubman did not do anything by herself.
No.
It would have been impossible.
Yeah.
She definitely was a leader and had the drive to put it in motion. But she had a lot of help.
Yeah.
And then there were people doing exactly what she was doing that would probably never get recognition. A documentary I watched, it was like 2 hours long. It spoke about a family called the Platts. The Platt family, it was three boys. They're all brother and sisters. 3 boys, 2 girls. One of the girls was responsible for just documenting everything. The other girl was kind of like raising the children, and the 3 men were conductors. Well, underground railroad conductors. Mm-hmm. And there's very little history on them. A guy who was telling the story said they're from Kansas, but there's very little information on them. All they have is a picture of their family and a bunch of photos of slaves that sent them pictures from their free place where they got to. So a bunch of slave or enslaved people who are now free sent the family pictures to say, thank you, we're free, we made it. They sent pictures like with a husband and a wife and children to let them know like we made it. Mm-hmm. And it would write on the back, like thank you. Some of it wasn't even in English. It was in like Dutch because some of their slave masters spoke Dutch. That's all they knew, you know? Wow. So they would, and they would, this family lived in Kansas, but they were English. And they would get away. They were trusted because they were English. I remember him making a point to say that they were trusted simply because they had a British accent, and they were able to harbor so many slaves in their homes because people wouldn't even look their way.
That's interesting.
Because they assumed that they were
harmless.
Yeah. They wouldn't disrupt the slavery thing.
Yeah.
They assumed that they knew nothing because they weren't from America.
Yeah.
But they were able to, but there's no other information. There's no like their father, their parents, somebody knows where in England they were from, when they died, when they were born, nothing.
It's so interesting, even with that time being very closely linked to the fact that there was no such thing as an American. It was all British.
Yeah. Yeah. Just European,
know what I mean? Cut from the cloth.
Because some people were, like I said, Dutch. There was a slave owner from Norway, and I read about sojourners, slave owners from Norway. She also spoke Dutch because she got sold to a guy who spoke, like, they didn't read or write, so they spoke what they heard. They learned whatever some of them spoke French, some of them spoke,
Yeah.
But that's one thing that I realized, like, man, this was in order for it to change the entire trajectory of the way the country was going, there had to be a lot of people against this thing.
Yeah.
And now we fast forward today where it seems like we're being made to believe that it's the opposite. A lot of people want black people in chains again.
Yeah.
And the people who are spreading this lie
are cut from the cloth of the slave master. Boy, that's facts.
Yeah.
That's just facts.
I looked up the presidents of the times. They were Democrats, man, passing these laws and all this stuff. They were not. The only Republican that came along was Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
That said, hey, cut this out.
1850.
Yeah. Other than, who's the 19th president?
I don't know. That's 3 after Abraham.
Yeah. He was jacked up. He's a Republican. Hold on, I'm looking up real quick. 19th president of the United States.
Typo.
19th president of the United States. Yeah, Rutherford B. Hayes.
Oh yeah, Hayes.
He was initially for slavery, because what he was saying was he was stuck on the property thing.
Yeah,
he was stuck on the property thing. And another thing that caught me by surprise was it was less of a hatred toward black people and more of a love for their property.
Right. At the expense of people. Well, come on, somebody. Yeah. Come on now. Exchange property for freedom.
Yeah.
Exchange property for comfort.
Yeah.
And
in a lot of ways, some slave masters would get into arguments, into fights, because if a piece of property came damaged, if a woman came beaten and she couldn't work, or a woman came and she was barren, she couldn't have children, they would have feuds. Like, what have you done to my property?
Yeah.
So in a lot of ways, they wanted to treat them fairly. You know what I mean? In a way, they wanted their property to be pristine.
Yeah.
So it was.
I can imagine that would be one of the arguments for slavery.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, I think that's something that people, and I think those are my thoughts. Like, I think that there are so many things that because of the romanticization of history, people end up on the side of the story rather than the side of the principle. And when it comes down to what is good, that principle it comes from a standard.
Yeah.
It comes from a standard. There are no different branches of good. If you trace it back, it goes back to one person, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. That's absolutely it.
Right.
And whenever people stand on the side of a story and find themselves at a different story, but standing on the opposite side of the principle they once stood on, they need to look at themselves.
Yeah.
And ask, what exactly do I stand for? Genuinely.
Right.
And even what we were saying about the cut from the cloth of Democrats and Republicans, it's not inherent in the color or the mascot.
No.
It's not inherent.
No.
It doesn't matter. But what's the principle? What's the principles being pushed? And that's just today as well. Their principles have been jacked up on both sides over history.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, there were many other things on the table as far as politics is concerned during slavery.
Yeah.
But since slavery existed, people said, look, my politics is taking vacation because there are humans being chained up. Look at yourself.
Yeah.
Look at yourself and ask, am I someone willing to give my life for the benefit of someone else? Because it's Jesus. It's Jesus, the King, who says there is no greater love than to lay down your life for your friend.
Yeah.
And so that's what we honor. We honor Harriet Tubman and those who fought with her, black, white, other, whatever during that time, who fought for good, fought for love, fought for humans, and laid down their lives for the benefit of someone else. Thank you guys for tuning into this episode. Check out our episode on all the different podcast platforms and on YouTube as well. But this is where you'll come to us next week, where you'll see either our humble opinion
or the facts.
Holler at us.